Now, for the last 2 weeks here on India Today, we've been getting you every single update that's come in on the diplomatic standoff between India and Canada. But what do Indians have to say about what's been playing out and the tensions over the killing of Nijjar, the serious allegations leveled by Justin Trudeau, and the fact that Canada has given no evidence whatsoever to back their claims? Now, we decided to get you the numbers of the public perception on this current standoff. We'll be showing you numbers of a survey conducted by Seawater. The sample size is about 1,600 people. This survey was done in a span of 2 days. 2 days when we saw this standoff at the absolute worst, when you had Canada going ahead and expelling our envoy, India resorting to tit-for-tat action. On the 15th and 16th October, we went out and asked people what they have to say about this entire showdown. Who do they blame? How does this impact those who had plans to move to Canada? We will deep dive to understand what the mood is, what the public mood is. Do they agree with what the Indian government has done? So let's dive right into the data right now and begin with the first question that was asked of the public of this country. India's response to the allegations made by Canada about India having a role in the killing of Nijjar. Here's the data that we have. The Seawater survey has found that about 53% of Indians believe that, yes, it was absolutely necessary, that India had to respond in the manner that it did, that there was a need to give it back to Canada. So the answer, in fact, from most of the Indians is that this was 100% necessary. 53% believe that, yes, the right step was taken. 13% believe that it was politically motivated to distract from domestic issues. There were questions that we put forth also that asked very clearly, do you believe this is a distraction tactic? 13% say yes. Overly aggressive, 12% believe that there was no need for India to hit back with such measure. And then lacking evidence, 9% of those who took part in the survey believe that there was not enough evidence put forth. But 53% believe it was absolutely necessary. I'd like to bring in Shiv Aroor on this broadcast as well to kind of break down what the survey has highlighted for us. Shiv, 53% of Indians believe that India's response to Canada was very much appropriate and very much necessary, pretty much backing the government's move here of the tit-for-tat steps that we took, and then took it one step further as well.
53%, Akshita, is an overwhelming verdict. I don't think there's any debate on that. But what I'd really like to do is meet the people who voted either overly aggressive or politically motivated to distract from domestic issues. Not to be impolite, but these are clearly people who haven't understood what the gravity of another country painting a target directly on the identities of India's High Commissioner and diplomatic staff in that country actually means. What were they expecting India to do? Were they expecting India to not react, not acknowledge what happened, not respond in an aggressive manner? All that India actually did is throw out Canada's High Commissioner from India. So I think 53%, I'm not surprised whatsoever. This is an overwhelming verdict by people who believe that this is not about nationalism. This is not about patriotism. This is about handling a country that has been historically hypocritical as far as terrorists are concerned, especially India-designated terrorists. And there was no way that India was going to take this sitting down. That's what this 53% says, Akshita.
Okay, Shiv, just stay with me. Let's dig further, deeper into the numbers that have come in the survey, what really is shown or what Indians think. The next question that was put forth is, who do you think is responsible for the current situation, for the breakdown of diplomatic ties between India and Canada? Again, look at these numbers. If in the previous one, 53% of Indians believed that India's response was adequate, here 54% believe that the Canadian government is to blame, that this was a crisis manufactured by the Trudeau government. About 18% believe that both sides are to blame, both the Indian government and the Canadian government. 9% believe the Indian government is to blame for the breakdown in ties. External factors, again, that's at 9%. Now, external factors here could be a number of issues, political, domestic politics, and all of that. So here too, 54% of Indians believe that the blame is on Canada for what's happened right now. Let's bring up also the next figures that we have for you of what we found in our survey. What was the root cause for the India-Canada diplomatic tension? Now, 30% believe that it's the political fallout of upcoming Canadian polls. And this is something that we discussed in great detail here on India Today as well, on how Trudeau is using this almost as an attempt to distract and why he's also resorting to these kind of steps over the killing of Nijjar without providing any evidence. 30% of Indians believe that this is a political fallout of the upcoming Canadian polls. 24% believe that this is a result of historical grievances. 13% that these are allegations of India's involvement in the killing of Nijjar, which is what Canada maintains. So 13% actually buy what Canada is saying. External influences from other nations, 11% believe that that's what's triggered this particular diplomatic tension. Let's bring in Ashok Sajjanar, former diplomat, on this broadcast. Sir, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on India Today. We're putting out survey numbers of what India feels about this current crisis, what Indians have to say. And it's interesting to really see the data because the numbers here, overwhelmingly, the sentiment, the public mood tracker, is that they believe the Indian government steps, their actions, their response to Canada was very much valid and justified.
Yes, thank you very much, Akshita, for having me on your show. And, the numbers are, as you said, that they are a vindication of what the Indian government has done. But I must confess that I am a little surprised at the low figures, the low numbers, 53% in the first case, 54% in the second case. Obviously, the understanding of the people has not been adequate in terms of the gravity of the action that Canada had taken. And I would tend to agree with what, Shiv has said in his floral bright red shirt, that, it is people don't understand what Canada has done, and not only under the current circumstances, but even what Mr. Trudeau said on 18th of September, the last year, that there are credible allegations, and there was discussion on the television screens for so long that there's no such thing as credible allegations. If you have evidence, you put forth the evidence. And over the last more than a year, there has not been any evidence whatsoever that Canada has been able to proffer to the Indian side. And still, even after that, the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, it goes to town, it goes to the press, and it expands the scope of the charges, again without giving any evidence. That 6 diplomats of the Indian High Commission, including the High Commissioner, are involved in getting Indians or South Asian people of South Asian origin having some transnational oppression and repression carried out against them. So I'm surprised. I'm a little surprised that there's just 53 and 54% on the first two polls.
The data that I find interesting, particularly, Mr. Sajjanar, on which I'd like your view, is the one about the root cause, in which largely Indians believe, and while many of them have spoken about, the political churn in Canada being a trigger, there are two numbers that stand out for me. If we can pull out the root cause data once again of what Indians think about what's triggered this particular crisis.